Okay, welcome to my new news show, in which I will be doing the news for the entire week. Let's get right into it. The first item is the Syrian conflict. And the first part of that item is that the Al-Qaeda leader, Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is sort of new because he's not been in the news much, has announced that he wishes to do all he can to cease the conflict between Al-Qaeda and the West, and that's because Syria is in such a conflict, and he actually does care about people, obviously. He wants to help take down ISIS and people like that, the Islamic State, I guess. And then after that, you have the Putin and Obama talks, which also happened during that, but they ended after. And off of the back of the Elton John and the Putin talks, which were about gay rights, it seems to have also gone nowhere, like at all. I mean, both have established that they oppose IS, and I mean, yeah, sure, that doesn't really help it though, because we already knew that they both opposed IS. It's just they both support different sides of the rebellious conflict in the first place. And this is where the next item comes in, which is the fact that Putin launched a strike on a Free Syrian Army controlled area, and the Free Syrian Army is the rebels that NATO and the Obama are backing, and then obviously the side that Putin is backing is the dictatorship itself, because he believes it's strong enough to take out IS whilst the rebels aren't, even though the rebels exist, and therefore it can't be that strong. And that means that there's possibly threat of World War III, possibly because of the fact that Obama reacted coldly to this. He reacted coldly to Putin when he met him at the UN conference afterwards, and that is probably due more to the Putin anti-American talks over the bombings that America did in Syria earlier on, in which there was no UN permit, and so he talked out against America. Putin did. And then, otherwise, there's not really much evidence to say that there will be anything to do with World War III. Obama and Putin have guaranteed at least some sort of peace, which means that it might be cold. It might be a cold peace, like it was last time. But, I mean, they're both freer, so it should help. Although democratizing Russia doesn't seem to have totally worked. Not much interest from Britain as well. There's not much interest from the world, but Britain is the main backer. Of course, Churchill was one of the first advocates of the Cold War, and that's probably due to Cameron's idiocy already in the Syrian conflict. What he's done so far has not been constructive at all. It's been destructive. He's been told not to go in there by Parliament. He's been told on multiple occasions there'd been votes, and he has lost both times, and he still sent drones in, and they've killed British IS troops, which is really, really terrible. Now, the news item 2 is about two political personalities, which seem to have massive groups of haters more than they do people who actually like them in any way. I mean, sometimes in the political circles they do. Like Tony Blair, one of them, has the Blairites, and then Donald Trump, the other one, has a lot of the Republican Party also following him. The party itself is in the people in Congress and Senate, and the people who actually want to be in Congress and Senate, but not the people who support the party as much. So, anyway, on Blair, he hot from the criticism of Corbyn and his right to leadership. It turns out he was telling that Colonel Gaddafi to flee to a safe haven, and this is right near the fact that he's been an influence over tyranny in Africa. Even since the mess of Iraq, he's been advisor to various dictators in North Africa, usually in Egypt, and now that includes Gaddafi. And of course his war crimes are still completely unaccounted. The fact that he killed a scientist, he got a scientist killed, most probably. Allegedly. And that, of course, means that the Chilcot report is not being released yet. And as the right honourable chap John Barron, who is a Tory, suggests, it could be to do with vested interests. Vested interests. I wonder how that would make any sense. "12 MPs that left the Labour Party as soon as Corbyn won." Anyway, on to the third item, which is even worse. Oh, wait, no, never mind. Let's leave that for a second, because it is pretty deep. I forgot to talk about the fact that Donald Trump has been saying that if he wins, he's going to send the Syrian refugees back. That's all I have to say. Now, this is a tragic event that has happened recently, and it's obviously got a lot of people in tears. And Oregon college shooting, that's what they're calling it. And it was a mass shooting in a college in Oregon, killing 10 people, injuring 7 more. Media persisted by not giving out the killer's name until CNN gave out the killer's name, which shows that CNN don't really care about the fact that the victims still exist. They see it as a pay. They see it as another way to glorify mass murderers, to get more papers sold, to get more views on their news shows. And this is on top of the fact that the killer himself had written a note glorifying other mass murderers. And this has been followed by pro-gun activists trying to defend it, saying that instead of removing the guns from the equation, they should add more guns in. That the teachers should also have guns, so that if anybody comes, the teachers can kill them before they kill the teacher. And so you're solving the idea of one killer who kills people with a gun by giving another person a gun to kill. And let's be honest, guns don't have a very high chance of not killing, even when you shoot people in the leg. There's a very high chance of it bleeding out and them dying. So then, people like Bob Owens on Twitter have been saying things as horrific as, "Be a victim, or not, your choice." He seems to be implying that by having a gun, you are safe from other people with guns. It's the nuclear deterrent argument all over again. If somebody fires a nuke, then it's fine because you have a nuke, right? You can just fire it back. It's not like you'll be dead. It's not like there shouldn't be nukes there in the first place because you'll be dead. And then people have been blaming 4chan, another way to blame people. This is off of the fact that they blamed so many musicians that it just doesn't matter anymore. They blamed so many games that it just doesn't matter anymore because nobody actually believes them. And it's probably not 4chan, although people on 4chan are quite weird-minded in that kind of sense. They are militant and they are advocate of such events. They're mostly angsty teens, so they're not the type of people who actually would do that. They're just people who are trying to be edgy. And then there's religious reasoning, possibly, as one of the victims, Anastasia Berlin, supposedly told her father that the killer had gone around in the classroom that she was in and told people to stand up and asked if they were Christian, and then if they were, he shot them. The next news item is also somewhat tragic. In Uzbekistan, human rights activists on a cotton farm, because of the fact that there was human rights abuse going on in the cotton farm, have been detained. They've been beaten and detained. Alright, this section is called Remember the Victims. It's quite a sad section, so I'm going to try and get through it as quickly as possible just to make sure. But we all do need to remember the victims, because by any accounts, they are more heroic than any of the killers, than any of the prime ministers, presidents, leaders, chancellors, anybody who is causing the deaths. So there's Rayad Khan and Ruhul Amin, and although these people are ISIS, they are still more heroic than the people who killed them, David Cameron and the Tory government. All of those killed in the Jisr al-Shagor missile strike by Putin. Dmitry Tikhonov, who was documenting, and Elena Orleva, who was one of the acting activists detained in Uzbekistan on the cotton farm. Katharina White, who committed suicide after she was basically what she is she was an upcoming actress who was quite good, and she was the ex-girlfriend of Jim Carrey, the very old actor. And then there's the victims of Oregon shooting: Lucero Alcaraz, 19, Trevon Taylor Ansbach, 20, Rebecca Ann Carnes, 18, Quinn Glenn Cooper, 18, Kim Saltmarsh Dietz, 59, Lucas Ivel, 18, Jason Dale Johnson, 34, Lawrence Levine, 67, the teacher, Serena Dawnmore, 44. Off of that, we're going into a better section, a happier section, as it would be. Hope is what I'm calling this section. So, on the top of hope, we have Jeremy Corbyn and Bernie Sanders, still rising in popularity, still beating any opposition, it seems. And then we have flowing water on Mars, which everyone seems to know about, so I'm just going to gloss over that. It's obviously a big thing for sci-fi fans, and that's pretty much it. I mean, flowing water means there's more chance of life than just having water, which we already knew was there. And then there's Google matching the donations of 11 million to the refugees in dire need of help in the refugee crisis. There's Naguib Swahiris, who is an Egyptian billionaire, and he's trying to buy 2 islands to help home refugees. Malaria in Africa has been cut in half, which is an incredibly good thing, because like 5 years ago, nobody cared about Africa. All that we saw was some news adverts saying, oh, get these nets, donate £1 to save one family. But there were more than one family that needed to be saved, you see. There were quite a lot. And now there's half of them which have been saved from what it used to be, which is amazing. And then we have Mantri Prakash, a college student, who has helped brought light to 5,300 homes in India, which is brilliant. Then big cats have a strange obsession with Calvin Klein, it seems, the aftershave, not the underwear, and that is helping activists save endangered jaguars, which is brilliant. There's no more praise that I could give to people, whoever the hell found that out. There's nothing that I could say that would possibly show how much I respect them, as well as a lot of the other people like Google, Naguib Zahiris. Those billionaires don't seem to be that way most of the time, and obviously Mantri Prakash is also quite brilliant. 500 homes have been built in Haiti since the Haiti crisis, which is amazing because it's probably the poorest country in the Americas, and one of the poorest countries in the West, which is sad. Because the West is this whole, oh look, we're all rich, we all have money, look at all this civilization, and Haiti's just there without anything, with people dying because of the crisis. Paris is to completely decimate car travel within the city, and that is supposedly going to happen within a year. A new record for wind farms. Over 1 million homes in Scotland are being powered by them now. And those two things are ecologically brilliant. On top of that, solar power is a massive help to the Nepalians, and it's also helping Kenyans. 47 villages have now got classrooms, just singular classrooms that are powered by the solar power, which is great because education is always the first way to go to get freedom. Maasai woman and her donkey is bringing solar panels across the Maasai and across the areas around it, which is, as well as being a funny thing, just having a donkey with a solar panel on its back, it's also quite brilliant. It's a similar thing to what Google have been doing with the fibre, obviously, in America. And then on top of that, we have a refugee of Somalia, a previous refugee, who's returning to run for president in the next election. Her name is Fudamo Diab. You should probably research her. She's quite good. She's named herself an optimist, which is always a good thing in politics. We have too many pessimists. Way too many. Now, at the end, I've got a small thing that's happening. It's kind of, it's not good. It's not bad. It's not the worst thing. It's not like it's just angering. It's not sad. Basically, Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn. Zoe Quinn is alright. Anita Sarkeesian, and they've been at the UN, and I'm sure many people have heard about it, and they've been on the cyberbullying towards women case, which is really silly, because cyberbullying is a tiny issue, so it shouldn't really be going to the UN, and freedom of speech applies both ways. So they might be able to call you a slut, but you can call them a fucking idiot who has no idea what they're talking about. Yeah, and I'd say that's way worse, since it's true. And then also the fact that it's just about women. They're making it a feminist issue when it's not a feminist issue. Bullying online is not a feminist issue. It's an issue to do with bullying, not to do with women. There are a lot of other people who get abused online that aren't women, that aren't even men, a lot of non-binary people even, and it just doesn't make any sense for her to just say, oh yeah, just women get abused online. No, that's not how it works. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hopefully will make another episode next week, so goodbye.